All right, let's start with Sony. So Sony had their state of play yesterday. I'm not going to go through this shit announcement by announcement just because there's stuff I know you don't care about. There's stuff I know I don't care about. So I just want to hit some big highlights. First of all, did you have a chance to watch any of Sony's state of play?
I did not. I've spent all of my free time on something else. I'm really sorry. I've been real obsessed with a particular thing going on right now, and I should have gone to watch it. I will watch it before this week's over. I've just been very excited about something.
All right. So let me just hit on a couple of the biggest things, and I'll save the biggest of them all for last. So, they showed off a lot of smaller titles. They had a weird not weird. I don't want to say weird. But they had a VR sizzle reel, and they revealed the LA Noire VR case files was available to download yesterday. And then they announced like Civ 6 is coming to the PS4. They announced a Medieval Remake demo that if you complete will give you in-game items when the full game launches at the end of October. They announced the PS Plus lineup for next month, which will be The Last of Us Remastered and MLB The Show 19. I'm excited about MLB The Show 19, but that's only because I've owned The Last of Us forever.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty good lineup, I think. The most recent baseball game and The Last of Us Remastered. They also showed off a cool Death Stranding limited edition PlayStation 4. Have you seen pictures of this yet, Larry?
I did not go and look at it.
Well, it should be. There should be pictures in this article that Cody posted. If not, just if you can Google it because it's really cool looking actually. So it's a PlayStation 4 Pro. So the PlayStation itself is white on top with the baby handprints on the top, and then the tiers alternate white, black, white, and it has Death Stranding etched in gold on the front plate of the black panel on the front. So the console is cool, but then
this is really cool.
The controller is translucent gold to mimic the BB container that you carry on the front of yourself. So they revealed that it's going to be $399, and it's available for pre-order now. So I'm a sucker for hardware, man.
Yeah.
And then go ahead.
I'm sorry. The controller is neat, but it just kind of grows out, to be honest. Because like what's in that container? It's amniotic fluid, right?
I would guess. So there was a photoshopped version of the controller going around that had the actual baby in it as well. I was like, all right, that'd have been real dope if they'd have figured out like how to remove some components and actually get that baby, or if they figured out. So have you seen the Gears 5 special edition console?
Yes.
So it has this really cool effect on it where they made it look as if the skull is actually trapped beneath ice. So it would have been cool if they figured out like how to do something with the casing that actually makes it look like the baby is in there without having to actually have like a figurine in it.
Yeah.
But no dice. We didn't end up getting that.
They did their best.
Yeah, they did their best. I'm a little sad Cody can't make it because I'm sure he's got some thoughts on this. I want to give some just general thoughts about the state of play before we get to the bigger news here.
Okay.
State of play is weird, and people need to recognize that it's weird and stop putting unrealistic expectations on this shit, because people across the internet were disappointed by everything except for the Last of Us reveals that we got. I think Sony's done a pretty good job across these first three of setting the expectations of what they're going to show within them. And they're not many E3s like people expect them to be. They're literal quarterly touch points where they're going to be able to communicate key messaging to us, and yes, be able to expand on information without necessarily going on full-blown reveals of certain things. And so, I think that should be set at the top. So everybody who watches these and baby rages because we didn't get fucking Ghost of Tsushima footage and release dates and a roadmap for the rest of the year or whatever the hell you were expecting. Horizon Zero Dawn 2 and all that shit. Like, just get over it. That's not what these events I think are for. But the format, man. So when they announced that this was coming, they said like, hey, sorry it's been a while. We've been working behind the scenes to have update the look of the State of Play, which is funny because they'd only had 2 before.
Yeah.
And I agree that it needed an overhaul in the way that this was delivered, but the way that they overhauled it just was not even remotely what I thought needed to be fixed. So they changed it to where it had like this slide feature where between announcements it would like show the title card for the game they just talked about, and then it would scroll to the left and it would reveal the next game it was going to talk about. But that to me was really the only thing that changed. Like, it was still, have you watched any of the State of Plays?
Yeah, I think I've watched the other 2, but like I can't remember them.
Yeah,
I'm bad at remembering the specifics of these things.
Well, it's very yeah, and it's fine. It's just very much like a disembodied voice that's like, oh, great, can't wait to play this coming from this studio. Now on to the next announcement, and like roll the next trailer. Yeah. And so it's really just Sony has entered this stage, and I think we've seen this also not quite as severely with Xbox at like E3, but this idea that it's got to be trailer, and it ends up almost playing like a YouTube playlist more than an event where we're supposed to be learning information about games.
Yeah.
And that's what I was hoping that they meant when they were like, we're coming back with a new look. I was hoping it would be a little more personal, a little less playlisty, I guess.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
I wonder if they've kind of backed themselves into that corner though, because of how this generation started and even how it carried on. Just PlayStation has been able to hammer Xbox for its lack of games, and a lot of the way they did that was just at E3, just boom, look at all this stuff that's coming, and it became a point where Xbox was ridiculed for its lack of that. And I wonder if we're just kind of in a place where they feel like they have to be hitting us with this big stream.
Yeah, well, and it's been like that at E3 for them outside of the last E3 they were at, where they were like, we're going to change sets in between game announcements. Like,
everyone meander over to this castle.
They went, we're going to funnel you guys into this makeshift church that we created, and nobody's going to know what the fuck's going on. So it's one extreme or the other, I guess. But yeah, that's a good point. Like, I think it's, especially in the beginning of a generation, there's just so little to talk about, like so little that you want to reveal because it may be far off, that you add fluff in. And I think also like live streaming these events and the live reactions that we're getting from people, both in creating YouTube videos and also just the fact that there's a scrolling chat next to these in any of the platforms they're watched on. And, you start taking too long between announcements and just resident sleepers in chat. And I'm sure that they see like, hey, when we bring a developer out, the engagement on these videos drops, like the people talking about them, people maybe even watching them. So I'm sure that there's some strategy behind it. But to me, like, I'm not a trailer guy for the most part. Like, that's not how I connect with games. I want to hear people talking about them. I love listening to the creators talk about these games. And we lose a lot of that in these Sony ones. And it just, when you're not showing trailers for games I'm not interested in, it just seems really, really boring. And it's even more damning when you're talking about games I am interested in, and I feel like, damn, this is boring, and that's how I feel about these State of Plays. But let's talk about The Last of Us. Big news, February 21st, 2020, that's when we're going to be able to play it.
You were so close.
I was so close. I said February 14th. February 14th, it was a Friday. The 21st is a Friday also, obviously. But that was also the date that Horizon Zero Dawn came out. So I was like, they're just going to lean into this Valentine's Day shit. There's a story arc about Ellie and her girlfriend in the game. I was like, they're going to lean into this. 21st, man. They have shown a lot of this game, man. And they have shown, in my opinion, entirely too much about this game, and I'm glad that you and I had a chance to talk before the show, so you know the spoiler I'm talking about, and anybody who has watched the trailer knows the spoiler I'm talking about. I'm not going to actually say the spoiler on here in case there are people who are intelligent, unlike me, who have gone on media blackout from this and refused to watch the trailer and just went for to see the release date. I would have been fine if they were just like, all right, guys, The Last of Us Remastered coming to PlayStation Plus, and one final thing, Last of Us Part 2 coming out February 21st, 2020. Now get the fuck out of here. I'd have been perfectly fine with that, but instead they showed a long-ass trailer that had a big-ass spoiler in it, and I was very, very disappointed by it, Larry. So I guess to loop you into this conversation. Oh, go ahead. You were going to loop yourself in.
I have a thought about that. And if you're avoiding spoilers, you may want to avoid me from. I'm not going to spoil it, but you may be able to piece it together from what I'm saying. So you may want to skip ahead like 20, 30 seconds. But I wonder if this spoiler was a deliberate decision, because I wonder if the way that we were piecing together the first trailer was not the way they intended us to piece it together. And I wonder if this was an attempt to avoid the Halo 5 trap of showing us something that told us that this was going to be one kind of story when it wasn't. So that was my thought. That's the only thing I can think of that makes sense. If that's not what they were trying to do, this was a really bad move.
Yeah, well, and I know we're talking a little bit in code here, but really, like, I don't. If you avoid it, I don't want to be the reason why this gets spoiled for you. So, yeah, and you know, there's always the thing of like, hey, we may be interpreting all this shit wrong. But the way that they did it seemed like a reveal of the information in a way that I don't think it could have really been misinterpreted. Larry, what's kind of your approach to games, especially story driven, that you're excited about? Like, do you go on media blackout for these things, or do you kind of just voraciously consume all content that comes pre-release?
When I was younger, I just voraciously consumed all of the content. And as I've gotten older, my feelings on spoilers changed, and there would have been a time where I'm avoiding those spoilers. And now I think I'm back to where I'll just enjoy the game for what it is, and I'll probably just look at whatever I come across. But largely, the games that I'm consuming these days, it's an irrelevant conversation because so little of what I play is story driven. It's really rare for that to be the thing that I'm excited about. The only exception to that in recent memory is the Man of Medan. The Man of Medan. And
the Mon of Medan.
The Mon of Medan. It's like, is it Sean Bean or Sean Bean? Like,
yeah, come on, pick a lane.
Anyway, but that one was kind of moot because the whole idea of that game is there are multiple potential stories. So. Yeah, I don't know. It's not a big deal to me, but I understand why it is for people.
Why do you think we're kind of in this culture now of, because this isn't just a video game thing, you know, where you've got 5 different trailers that just show you way too much. This is in movies. It's somewhat in television shows as well. There seems to be really no caution in what's shown in pre-release material for this sort of stuff. Like, Why do you think that is?
I don't know. And to be honest, it just makes zero sense to me. When you look back at trailers from when we were growing up, like trailers used to, like, they would give you an idea of the type of story you were getting, but they didn't give you, like, there are so many movies these days that you can just piece the whole story together from the trailers. You can just get the whole beat for beat path. Avengers was a really refreshing thing in recent memory, just because you thought you were seeing a lot, and then once you got into that movie, into Endgame is what I'm talking about. Once you got into that movie, like 10 minutes in, you're through everything that you thought the whole movie was going to be about. But that's an exception to the rule. Like, and I don't understand it because I think the mystery would draw more people in. Like, there are movies that I consciously decide not to see because I'm at the theater. I see this preview and I'm like, well, I know everything that's happening. Why would I come to that?
Yeah. Well, I guess the way around that is you take the Slenderman approach, where you show a very big plot point in the trailer, and then you just leave the story actually completely unresolved in the movie itself.
Just yank that plot point right out.
Yep, this character's closure matters absolutely none. We know we show her death in the trailer. No need to do it in the movie.
If you want to see her ending, YouTube it.
I have some thoughts about why we're like this, and it is because of the YouTube generation. And it is because of the frame-by-frame breakdowns, and because of the reactions, and because of the theory crafting and the predictions and all the shit that we get into with the media that we interact with, where it becomes a lifestyle, and people have built their brands and their livelihoods even on these really niche markets of like, hey, I am the Final Fantasy. I joke about these people all the time on the Nightly Rundown. These guys who like can watch a trailer for a game and go frame by frame and be like, oh shit, you see this thing in the background at 2:36? That looks like the silhouette of this character who appeared 2 games before this that we never really knew what happened to him, but they haven't really made a big deal out of him since. Maybe he's coming back. Like, that kind of shit just gets eaten up by people on the internet, and it gets a ton of engagement. I mean, think about the Star Wars movies. And
I was going to go there. I did that to my wife the other day. I kept hitting pause and being like, see, those are not First Order Star Destroyers. Those are Imperial.
Oh my gosh, he's one of those nerds, boys and girls. Larry's got his YouTube channel. He's got his fucking magnifying glass looking at the screen. He's like, all right, we're going to zoom, and enhance NCIS style here.
Now, the blur there. At 2:38 3/4 of a second.
But think about the free promotion and publicity you get from those videos. If you are Marvel, if you are Disney, if you are Naughty Dog. Because while you and I can be measured in our consumption prior to the release of a piece of media we're excited about, there are others who have zero self-control within it and want to consume every bit of thing. And look, if that's you, more power to you. Like, perfectly fine by me. I personally would have much rather not known what was revealed in this trailer prior to going into this game. And if you get excited about it, having seen it in the trailer, that's fine. But Naughty Dog understands that, hey, every single trailer is going to get tons of news articles. It's going to get tons of reaction videos. It's going to get tons of breakdown, and people are going to talk about this shit, and we're not going to have to pay a dime for it. We just released the video out into the wild, and everything after that. It's called earned media, Larry. Earned media. It's big. It's huge in marketing. Yeah. Earned media is the most valuable media that you can find because you don't pay a dime for it, but people push it and create it, and that can be positive or negative. And with trailers, it's pretty much all goodwill, you know?
Yeah. But I wonder if there's a risk with the backlash that comes from like building into that culture. I understand that there's a lot of benefit from it, but The Last Jedi, I think, is a great example of that. I think a lot of, and I know like people want to roast me on this, but the angry portion of Star Wars fans on the internet will come for me. But a lot of the backlash to that movie was not legitimate backlash. It was backlash to Disney did not go with the theory that I thought this movie was going to be. Mm-hmm. And I just can't have them going the direction that going anywhere other than the direction that I wanted it to go. Yeah. Well, so go ahead.
Well, you also run into people who, and this is what happened with the Game of Thrones stuff. People just created better theories and better stories than what was actually delivered. And that's another risk you run into.
Yeah. Yeah. So I at the end of the day, like, visibility is better than the negative messaging, right?
Yeah.
9 times out of 10. And so I'm sure it's still worthwhile for these companies to build into that arena of the internet. But there's definitely a backlash that's going to come from.
Yeah. And another negative I see that comes from it is just how many times this was big, like in the days of, like at the height of The Walking Dead for me, where there's source material, but they deviate from that source material, and people are really keen about figuring out where the connections are and where they're not. And how many times would you be like reading like I like to go on Reddit and read the episode discussion threads and stuff like that after an episode airs of a show that I like.
Yeah.
And how many times have you been reading a thread like that and somebody just straight up beat for beat predicts what's going to happen in the next episode, and it just feels a little ruined for you? And it's not a spoiler because, hey, they were just theory crafting and, predicting, but they just connected the dots so well. And I think that can happen with these trailers as well.
That happened to me with a close friend of mine. The last episode I ever watched, we all used to get together and eat a meal and watch the show. And
he's talking about The Walking Dead. Sorry, you cut out when you said the show.
Sorry, yeah. It was the episode where they introduced Negan and my friend Luke Croft. That's said,
me, baby.
You know how they've been running this show this season, right? Like the way this episode ends is we watch from a first person's perspective as Negan hits them in the head with a bat, blood drips down, and we don't find out who died till next season. And I said, they won't do that. If they do that, I'll never watch this show again. And of course, I never watched that show
again. Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah, it was telegraphed. But when you put out so much content, people start to connect those dots. And I think that it can ruin the experience in ways that you didn't intend to, but it just happens. So I am on full media blackout now for The Last of Us Part 2.
And you drain things of the emotion carry is the other issue. And for me, like, I'm someone that can enjoy a thing over, but it's not going to have the same impact as it first had. And a great example of that for me is in The Force Awakens when Han and Chewie walk on the Millennium Falcon, and Han looks at Chewie and says, "Chewie, we're home." Like, completely stripped of its impact, because that's in the first trailer, I think, or if not, it's in the second trailer. Yeah. So like, we all knew the line was coming. Oh, cool, they said that thing that we saw was coming. And the spoiler that we've been dancing around in The Last of Us, like, I think this is probably in that same boat. Like, unless they were correcting a mistaken messaging, if this is something that was going to be revealed a little bit into the game and you're questioning whether it was the case, then whatever gravity that moment was going to have, like, it's gone.
Circle Hunter in the chat says, not to be that guy, but season 9 was incredible and definitely worth catching up.
I'm glad that after 3 additional seasons, they finally managed to put the show back together. But I will not watch 3 terrible. I'm saying that, but I've just watched 3 terrible seasons of Supernatural to see how it ends. So I'm a hypocrite.
Yeah, it kind of jumped the shark for me, and it's not necessarily about the quality of it now. It's just the premise of the show. The Walking Dead. I lost interest.
I know we're in the weeds, but I'm gonna stay there for 5 more seconds just to say what I loved about the comic was that it was a story of Carl growing up in the apocalypse, and The Walking Dead just inherently can't be that ever now.
Yeah,
the TV show.
Crazy that the comics are over.
Yeah, I loved how that ended. Right, no telegraphing of. All right, guys, here's the last one.
And everyone's fantastic. Because everybody was like, man, this is just a fucking ATM. He's going to go forever. And all of a sudden, it's just like, I think we're done here. I do want to catch up on the comics. I really did enjoy the comics. Not to be that guy.
No, they were great.
So,